Welcome to Gen Z Money, episode 34.
Of course, people naturally want to show you the highlight reels. That's basically what social media does sometimes. It's a highlight tape. People put up the best of what they have, and you want to flaunt and show how much money you make or you have, and we watch all the celebrities and all that. But when you hear other regular people just like yourself talking about finances and how things aren't perfect, but we can work to make them better. I think that's a good thing, and it's good to see other people doing that.
Even if my jokes aren't funny, my tongue tied up on it, and I don't need to speak a single word, 'cause you got me holding.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Gen Z Money Podcast, where we turn financial peace to your reality. I'm your host, James Bowman, and today we have on the guys from the Black Financial Initiative podcast, Larry, Eric, and Terrence. Guys, this is such a great interview. We get all three of these guys' perspectives on not only how they got started investing, but also how they started getting their financial literacy in order, and also how they started putting it out to people like us. They make content specifically for the Black community because, let's be honest, we need it the most. The financial literacy just isn't there in the Black community as much as other communities. So I think these guys are doing a phenomenal job. We talk about a whole bunch of books that we recommend, and of course, I'm going to have all that in the show notes. But I highly suggest, if you guys enjoy this interview, please go check out those guys' podcasts. You can find them anywhere you listen to podcasts. Anywhere you find Gen Z Money, you can also find the Black Financial Initiative podcast. I don't want to give too much of their story away, so we're going to jump right into the interview, guys. I really hope you enjoy it, but let's get to it. Larry, Eric, T, what is going on, guys? Welcome to the Gen Z Money podcast, man. I am excited for you guys to come on, man. What's up?
Man, what's up, man? All good over here.
Yo, this is
having us on.
No, man, the pleasure is all mine, man. I love when I can speak to people who have much more wisdom and experience and bring that to my audience who need it, right? Because we need it, man. We need it. So look, I want to go straight into it, man. Larry, we'll start with you. How was money talked about and viewed as you grew up?
Man, so in my household, grew up with entrepreneur parents. They own a construction company, and just to be realistically, money really wasn't talked that much to the children. It was more like just kind of seeing things from afar. Like I would say my experience coming from my parents is just watching them. I kind of tailored my wife and our lifestyle after them. Things such as they were married for they got married for 1 year and bought a house. So the same thing kind of happened in my household. Like we were married for a year, bought a house afterwards. My mom told me to start putting away money for retirement at a young age. Like as soon as I graduated from college, she just told me, she didn't tell me you need to put it back a certain amount. She just said put it back as much as you can at a time. So that 10, that 15%, just put it back what you can. So shortly after college, I started doing that. But really, money really wasn't talked that much in my household, just to be honest with you.
Gotcha. All right, Eric, what about you, man? How was money talked about and viewed as you grew up?
Oh, man, I almost say the same as Larry. Like, it really wasn't. I would say probably more so, like my dad, he was an entrepreneur, and my mom worked. And so it was really more so on the money end of, if I give you $10, you need to maximize this $10. Now you can do what you want with it. Just know that you won't get any more. So it's like, do I want to buy, let's just say one piece of candy for $10, or do I want to buy a bunch of these peppermints, and make it last? So it was more so coming from that end of this is what we have, you need to maximize it. But there wasn't any invest, or these are different avenues to make. It was kind of just none of that. It was just always kind of stay on budget. This is what you make. Don't go over that, and that's it.
Gotcha. Yeah, you know what? That's not too uncommon, man. It's like this is the money you have. You better make the best out of it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you $100, and you got to make that $100 last the
Make
whole
it
month.
right? Yeah,
Yep.
make it last.
All right, Terrence. What about you, man? How was money talked about and viewed as you grew up?
And I'm curious to see what you have to say on this also, because right now it looks like Larry, Eric, and myself, we're all kind of in the same mode with this. So it wasn't a lot of talk about it growing up for me. I mean, I'm not going to say it wasn't any, but it was very little. And that's kind of the theme, it seems, that we see in our community, where we have kind of a lack of that experience and that talk and that kind of that nurturing growing up when it comes to finances. So it was very little talk. As I got older, there was a little bit more conversation. I mean, I didn't have like Larry and Eric, they said that, their parents, or they at least knew some entrepreneurs. I really didn't know a lot of entrepreneurs growing up. It was more kind of the same field I basically entered into, which was just, manual labor, factory work and stuff like that. And my dad, on the other hand, he did end up working in management in those positions. And so as I got older, he started talking a little bit about it. I remember, my parents were split up, and during the summer I would go visit my dad. I would spend the summers with him, and I would go up to his job with him during the day, and it would be boring as hell. Because I'm a kid and I'm sitting up at somebody's job, basically waiting for him to get off. And so I did get to watch him kind of interact with people, see how he handled himself professionally. And he would occasionally kind of tell me like, hey, this is what you need to do with your money, put it away. And as I started getting older, maybe around college, he started talking a little bit about stocks. So as I got older, it started to increase a little bit. But as a kid, it wasn't a whole lot. I always was kind of had a mindset and understood that this money is mine to keep, So I always had that mindset. But as far as the next level of investments, how to make money, I really didn't know that coming up. I just knew how to save money.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be blunt when I say this, but I'm not surprised because I had a very, very similar upbringing to money with all of you guys. Like it wasn't talked about, or when it was talked about is, hey, we ain't got the money for that right there. It's yeah. So Terrence, I see that all of you guys have the same money story, but I'm not surprised, right? But that's kind of the beauty of what I'm trying to do and what you guys are trying to do with the Black Financial Initiative is like, we are breaking that cycle. It is starting at a young age. But Larry, I want to go back to you just for 1 second, man. You said that, your parents didn't really talk to you about money as a child. I assume that you broke that generational curse and now you're getting your children involved with the finances. Is that right? Or are you still holding off on that, or how's that?
Holding off on having children. I don't have no children.
Oh. Gotcha. Okay. Well, but do you plan on it? I assume you plan on introducing it to them early.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's important. I think every generation just learns from the next generation, and we just keep on growing and growing. I'm sure there's things that my parents knew that my grandparents didn't know, and so on and so on. So it's just kind of trying to learn more of this generation. Where I think we're really trying to really bring some more financial education to the younger generation. So if and when I have children, definitely plan on starting them at a young age.
Yeah, I 100% agree, man. So
And I'll
Eric,
say,
go ahead.
sorry. I was gonna say, similar to T, my dad would bring me to work, me and my siblings, and I think that's probably more so where I learned different stuff. If you're just around it, you can't just help but pick up, little things, or you see something you may ask, even though it's not really taught. Like you're there, you're in the midst of it. You can't just like avoid it, So you may see certain things, and okay, I was with my dad all day today. He just worked 10 hours, like. It starts to just get in your mind like, okay, this is work, this is what it is, this is what you do, but actually sit down and talk. No, but yeah, I do appreciate that of like going to work, and I really don't see that as much now, like kids showing up to work or bringing your kid to work. Like it seems like that doesn't really exist now.
Yeah, and I think that expands way outside of finances, right? Because if your dad is a
Hmm.
roofer, and you're around roofers all day, you might learn how to tap down a couple shingles or make a repair just from being around it and being in that environment. So I think that
Hmm.
goes for absolutely anything, and it's not just finances.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean
So
that's my career. My dad was in concrete construction. I was in it for most of my career. I took a little venture out of it, and now I'm back in it. So just growing up, and that's and also another thing. This wasn't really taught when I was growing up, but I always know I wanted money. Like even at a young age, like my parents, I'm sure they had money to give me, but they just want to give me all the money I wanted. If I wanted something and I asked for it, there might be a no. So at a young age, I started working when I was in seventh grade, working at a little pee wee football league, and I got to a point like where if I want something, I just want to buy it. So so I started working when I was in seventh grade. Actually, before that, I was mowing yards just in the neighborhood. Just so it wasn't taught, but it was kind of taught inherently. Like, okay, if you want something, you have to go get it.
So it might not have been said outright, but the actions that you saw if your parents wanted something and they had to work overtime to go get it. So that
Yes.
seeing that happen is what influenced you to replicate that. And I think that's a pretty good it's a pretty good thing to catch on to. There's some habits that bad habits you could have taken, but that's a good
That's true.
one. So, all right, Terrence, let's go back to you. Was there ever a pivotal moment in either your younger area of finances or as you got older? Was there ever a pivotal moment where you realized, you know what, I need to take control of my finances?
And I would say probably going back to childhood again, a really early age, as far as that kind of growing up and having that mindset of knowing that what I make is mine to keep. And luckily, I didn't have one pivotal situation where I was like, oh snap, I'm in a ton of trouble where this is hard for me to see a way out and have to dig my way out. Luckily, I was in a situation where early on I learned to like, hey, make sure you try to manage your money. I didn't have um, that good instinct to make money necessarily. Well, I guess probably around high school I did. Like Larry said, he started working at an early age, and I credit my dad for taking me to work and kind of giving me some tips and things that I was growing up and getting older. But also, I remember I might have been in high school maybe when around my neighborhood we would have like on I think it was Saturdays or Sundays during the summer or springtime like four-wheeler meets. So everybody get on, get your four-wheelers. We meet out in the pasture, out in the field. And my mom actually kind of suggested to me, and she would kind of push this for me and my younger brother, like, hey man, it's hot out there. Why don't y'all go take some drinks and candies, and popsicles, whatever. And so me and my little brother, we out there kind of, hustling. We have little chests of ice cream, popsicles, waters, and we're, buying bulk and out there in the field selling products. So, and I just kind of kept that instinct where in junior high and high school, I learned how to cut hair because my dad used to cut mine. And then I'm in the field house or in the locker room after practice, cutting hair, making a quick buck, cutting coaches' hair and stuff like that, and carried that on to college. So I've always, kind of had that instinct to try to make money and also try to put that money behind. So I think it just also came from watching other people. Like even though they would try to lead me in the right direction, I also saw some instances where others close to you would struggle financially. So
So it sounds like what it sounds like what you're saying is you kind of always knew how to manage money, but as you got older, you started figuring out the hustle of making money, like selling
yeah,
stuff, cutting hair, and stuff like that. And you already had the money management skills, so now you're getting the money, and it's falling into place. Is that right?
exactly. You're right. It's about that. As you get older and maturing, you try to learn and pick up new skills and new tips. And for me, it was trying to make money as I got older, trying to learn how to make that money.
You know what? I really don't want to go past that. I really want to emphasize that, especially to the listeners. It's because a lot of times it's the opposite. A lot of times we start off by making money. We get out into the real world, we become adults, and we start making real money, and we have no idea what to do with it. And that's why we do things like go into credit card debt or take out massive student loans and stuff like that, because we have no money management skills, but we're making all the money and we're not managing it. But you got the luxury, and your parents instilled in you how to manage your money first. And then when you started making money, it's like, oh, it's this easy. You know what I mean? But Eric, all right, let's go to you, man. Was there ever like a pivotal moment at any point where you realize like, okay, hold on, I might be in a pickle and I really need to buckle down and get serious?
I don't think we're gonna continue the cycle. Unfortunately, it was like T. It wasn't really in a moment of. I think because my parents kept, and I always say us because I'm thinking of my sisters too, but I'll just say me. It kept me. They taught you how to manage it, So there wasn't like a, okay, Eric, you make $2,000 a month. Go get an $1,800 apartment. Go get a $500 car payment. Well, now you're over 2,000. So it was always like work within what you have. But I would say I managed it good. But I would say probably about 28, 29, I started to try to get to the investing side, because I had no thoughts or ideas on that. And I live in Austin, and so I'm sure everybody knows the housing prices, especially in Austin, have just skyrocketed. So like looking back on stuff like that, it's like, man, I wish I would have known the investing in of money like way earlier, because I was managing my money and like just saving, going on with my life. Like, yeah, I'm within budget. I'm good. But like the investing side is what was there was none of that.
Yeah, but I really want to stress that point. Is like saving is half the battle. Living on less than you make is half the battle. A lot of people come to, I'm sure you guys have seen it. They come to you like, hey, how should I invest, or what should I be buying? Where should I be putting my money? But you can't ask that question if you don't have money, right? So you have money and you're looking like, okay, now I need to figure out where to put it. And looking back, you might be like, man, I wish I would have figured that out earlier. But that's a good problem to have. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was, graciously enough, I was never like in the heavy credit card debts, and had student loans, but nothing too big. Like, I just never had that all, pay bills on time. Like I just live very simple.
Yeah.
If you paid on time, you shouldn't have any trouble from them.
Yeah, and they call it common sense, right? Common sense says if you make a certain amount of money, you need to spend less than that. But common sense ain't so common anymore, as the saying goes.
Right.
So, Larry, what about you, man? I'm seeing a trend right now between T and E. So, what about you? Was there ever really a pivotal moment where you were like, you know what, I'm going down the wrong path and I need to change directions financially?
I do, but I have to go back to Terrence. We got to pick up on Terrence. Terrence, you were from the country. Y'all was in the pastures and stuff.
Hey, you know how we do it, man. Hey, we had horses out there. You got to get the trail rides going.
And a little insider story: T cut our hair in college.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, he was our barber. Yep.
Did y'all pay him?
Oh, yes, had to.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay. T, I was gonna say, don't let that slide, man.
Hey. Then when he moved off campus, he upped it.
Hey, man. Yesterday's price ain't today's price.
Exactly.
Hey, exactly. Hey, man, you got to pay for them apartments off. I had a rent thing.
Rent went up. But yeah, going back to your question, yeah. So actually, for me, there was. So about 5 years ago or so, my wife and I were married, and every year our income was increasing and whatnot. But one year I became a salesman. I started making significantly more than the year before. And then my wife was like, what are we doing with this money? You're making more money. We need to figure out, let's be productive with this money. So she actually started doing research. She definitely started research before me, and she found Dave Ramsey. And she decided that we had too much debt. At the time, like I said, I had a $500 credit card, so I didn't think I was doing bad, but I had a truck. We both had student loan debt. She had a little credit card debt. So it was, we actually had over $111,000 worth of debt combined. So at that time she decided that we need to start paying off our debt. She brought it to me. It probably took like 1 or 2 discussions, and I got on board, and we paid off that $111,000 in debt in 15 months. While we were doing that, she put on me to start researching how to invest, because once we started paying off our debt, we decided we wanted to invest after that. So I started reading books about the stock market and started investing a little bit in the stock market. After we paid off our debt, we both increased our Roth IRAs to what was it, the max for the year and whatnot. But I've quickly decided that real estate was kind of the venture I wanted to go into. And that goes back to her as well. Her father was a real estate investor, is a real estate investor. So, she was bringing that up to me. So I started researching real estate. So I got to give all the credit back to my wife, though. That about 5 years ago, like I said, we were in a lot of debt and decided to pay off our debt. And that's when our financial journey really started.
Man, oh man. I'm not sure if I told this story when I was a guest on you guys' podcast, but it was the same exact way, man, where my wife asked me that same exact question, like, what are we saving for? Like, where? And she sparked that whole, where do I need to be putting my money thing. So I love how you're going to give your wife credit where credit is due. But I don't want to skip over that, because that you just kind of triggered a little switch in the back of my head. You said you had $111,000 in debt and you paid it off in 15 months, 1 year and 3 months. How did you do that? Did you guys follow the debt snowball like Dave Ramsey teaches, or did you guys do your own way, or how did you guys make that happen? And walk me through the emotions that you were feeling. Were you guys on rice and beans, or how did that happen?
Okay, so like we discussed on our podcast with you, personal finance is personal finance, so it's personal. So we definitely 90% did Dave Ramsey snowball. We did all the principles he said, but we didn't stop paying into our retirement accounts. At the time, I don't think we were fully invested. I don't think we were maxing them out, but we still were putting money into our retirement accounts at the time. So we didn't stop that. Dave Ramsey would say stop that. But we did the snowball. Like we did a budget. We started off with the lowest debt that we had, paid the minimum on all the other debts, and just started paying off our debt. And like I said, my income had increased significantly. So it might have been easier for us than everybody. A lot of other people, but we did Dave Ramsey snowball. So that's what we did. And we didn't do beans and rice and beans necessarily, but we did do a budget, and yeah, it worked for sure. And like you said, people who have you said what'd you say, something about being debt free, the joy, you didn't say the word joy, but something like the joy of being debt free, something like that. Like I've never actually been 100% debt free, because we still have our mortgage, we still have our real estate, but from a commercial or from a consumer debt freedom, it does feel good. And at the time, it's hard, like not doing what you always want to do. Like we might want to go out to eat and say, you know what, we don't need to eat right now. We have a budget. We budget for this amount of food, whatever. So, but once you start getting those wins, once you start paying off that one debt, it motivates you. Once you pay off that second debt, it really motivates you. And those wins really do keep you inspired and keep you wanting to keep on, getting those wins. So say what you want to say about Dave Ramsey, but if you want to pay off your debt, it works.
Yeah, I always give kudos to Dave Ramsey, even if I don't follow his plan to the T. I will never discredit not only what he has done for others, but the information he's given to me, right? A lot of things about personal finances, you might come and listen to this podcast or you guys' podcast, the Black Financial Initiative, and there might be things that they don't agree with. Take what you want and leave what you don't. You can't discredit every single thing they say just because you don't agree with one thing they said. Not going on rice and beans. Personal finance is personal. Not stopping your retirement. I didn't stop my retirement. So it's like, but that doesn't just discredit everything. So I love that. And we're going to get back into real estate a little bit later. Don't forget, because I love me some real estate later. We're going to talk about it. So I can ask this question to all of you guys. What is your primary source of financial education?
For me, really mostly YouTube. They'll say YouTube, then podcasts, and I'll say books. Like those are the top three.
Yeah. So, you know what, man? I asked this question on Twitter, and, I'm kind of. So, a lot of people love reading, and I'm not knocking anybody who reads at all. I'm not a big reader. And if I do read a book, I'm audiobooking it. But yeah, Larry, I see a bookcase, man. I see. But I did ask the question because, times have changed. And a lot of people always resort back like books are the number one. And I'm starting to think like with things like YouTube, things like podcasts, where the information is so much, it's updated so frequently. I have personally moved away from books. Now, of course, there are those books that have like that they stood the test of time. Total Money Makeover, Richest Man in Babylon, Rich Dad Poor Dad, all these like classics, they have stood the test of time. But I just think YouTube University and podcasts, they don't get the love. They don't get the love that they deserve, man. Like they don't have, everybody wants to be a best-selling author, but they ignore us, man. So I'm glad that you pointed that out. It's like, books are nice, and there are some awesome books that I suggest everybody reads out there. But with times changing, so is the way you can take in information. Was there anything else that Larry or T you guys wanted to add?
Well, you literally mentioned Total Money Makeover, Richest Man in Babylon, and what was it? What was that by
Rich Dad Poor Dad?
Rich Dad Poor Dad. So we haven't dropped the Richest Man in Babylon, but we're gonna do a episode on that. But the other books we've done episodes on. So if you don't have time to read those books, go ahead and listen to the BFI review of them.
Yeah, guys, and I'm gonna get the link to those episodes, and I'm put them in the show notes so you guys can go give that a listen over on their podcast. Because a lot of people just don't enjoy reading, and I personally I'm one of those people, man.
No, but going back to your question, so for me, I definitely am the opposite. I prefer to read, to me, I retain it more. For me, that's me personally. Everybody's different. I retain it more, and it's kind of relaxing to me, to be honest with you. But but for me, it's definitely books and then podcasts. Don't really go to YouTube too often, but I know it's a great source. But those are, I guess, the list I go.
What about you, T? Anything else we didn't mention that you think is worth mentioning?
And for me, I would say, in a way, it falls under the networking part, because it's kind of the podcast, because we're doing the podcast. But while in the process of doing this, I get so much more information from talking with guys like yourself, James, or our other guests we have on, learning from these individuals and checking out their podcasts or seeing what they tweet out or on Instagram. You can get out of anything what you want to get out of it. You can get garbage, or you can seek out and tailor it to your own needs. And for me, like books are one thing. Like Larry said, we've done podcasts over books or episodes over books. So that's another good source. But for me, I think just even Larry or Eric, hearing them when we do these podcasts or just our conversations, it's a good motivator for me. And I get a lot of information because Larry's already been there and done that with real estate. That's one, for example, in a way I would say networking, because just by knowing him, I pick up on some of those tips and figure out ways that how whenever I get started on real estate, I know there's a source that I can lean on and go to.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up, because one of my favorite sayings is like, you never want to be the smartest person in the room. And even though I'm the only person in this room, I'm online and with a bunch of you guys, and I do not want to be the smartest person on this call, because I'm always willing to learn. I'm always looking to learn. I'm always willing to look for the gems, and especially when speaking to people. And a lot of people think they might listen to you guys' podcast and you guys talk about a bunch of things they don't know about, or they might listen to this one. But it's like every single episode, I take something away, something I did not know before I spoke to this individual, and now I know. And it makes me better. And so a lot of people may look at you guys and think, man, these guys know too much. I'll never get to that point. But you have to realize we didn't start there. And a big part of it is networking and realizing, like, listen, Eric knows something I don't, 100%. Larry knows something that I don't. Terrence knows something that I don't. And I need to figure out what it is and get it. So let's dig into the podcast a little bit more. What inspired you guys to start the Black Financial Initiative?
So during the pandemic, it just seemed like there was a lot of Black people getting killed. And I don't think it's any more than normal, but there was a lot of coverage of it. Like the gentleman in Georgia, Ahmaud Arbery, that one really, that gentleman getting killed really hit me hard. All the other countless deaths from the police and whatnot. So we have a group of friends. It's Eric and Terrence, but we also have some more friends that we all stay in communication with, and we just felt like, man, we need to try to help our community out in some way. Really didn't know how to. So we started brainstorming. I brought it up to Eric and Terrence. Would you guys want to, join me on a podcast to bring financial literacy to our community? And they jumped right on. And really, that's how it started. And
Okay,
I want to give Terrence credit because Terrence actually came up with the name Black Financial Initiative too. So.
gotcha. Well, let me ask you this: why did you choose finances? Because there's a lot of topics you could choose to pinpoint. You could choose to pinpoint, I don't know, education, college, or there's a lot of things you could, or even survival tactics when dealing with law enforcement or people who might hate you or want to harm you. Why finances?
Well, two parts to that. So that was in the midst of me really learning financial literacy myself. So it's like kind of like in the forefront of my mind. Also, I think a lot of stuff we go through as Black people is because of our lack of financial resources. Obviously, racism definitely still exists, and there's systemic racism still to this day. But I feel like we don't have a lot of times the financial resources to fight when different things come our way. So I do think, in general, having more money, have a bigger net worth would help our community out just in general and in all aspects, health, just anything.
I really appreciate you saying that, because although it really sucks to have to admit that, but the more money you have, the less BS you have to deal with, especially when it comes to poverty or the way people look at you, the place you live. The more money you have, the less problems that come your way in that way, especially as Black people. So although it's not right, although we want to change it, we have to be able to look at this and be like, you know what? This is the world we live in right now. So we need to adapt until we can change it. And wealth does that. Wealth takes you places that you wouldn't be otherwise. And building wealth gives you opportunities to not only get yourself in other rooms, but to bring others with you. Eric, did you want to add something to that?
No, well, kind of extend on what Larry said. I think, like you mentioned, money or wealth is involved in almost every aspect. Something like you said, health, where you live, the car you probably drive. Like, if money is tied to all these things. And so, it's like if you can have a more reliable car, if you can have better health care, if you can live in a safer place, like these are more so things that I think like we're geared towards. We're just not like, come on here and learn how to be a billionaire or a million. It's like, yeah, these things, will hopefully better your life is what we're looking at, and I think the financial literacy part is a big aspect of that.
Gotcha. Yeah. So have you guys been receiving, I've received a little bit of pushback, and I assume everyone receives some type of pushback. And I at the time we're recording this, I just released, I posted a TikTok earlier of some pushback that I got. It was a little comical. But have you guys been receiving any pushback, or have people been receiving this with open arms, or, how have people been receiving the message that you guys are trying to put out?
Honestly, man, surprisingly, I haven't had any pushback, and I kind of expected to, just putting Black in front of it. I kind of expected that people would have some pushback. In my brain before we even started, I kind of thought about that, going back and forth. Should we put Black in front of it, whatnot? And we say, we went on and definitely did it. But I did expect to get some pushback. But honestly, it's been all positive feedback. I can't speak for Eric and Terrence, but from my aspect, it's been all positive.
Yeah, it's been positive from everything I can see and everything I've heard. I guess I would wonder if a person does have blowback or whatever. Like, what is the blowback? of, and I think it's more so what Larry says is just because, you know, putting black there, is that like the, you know, what you don't like? But anything else, I'm like, we're trying to help, I guess, is what I'm like looking at. Like, I can't knock like you said, you know, you may not agree with everything, but you know, if I tell you to save, I'm like, well, what are you coming at me to, why you coming at me so hard because I say to save, you know, or something like that. Like, you know, but yeah, that's just been my experience.
What about you, T?
Same as you guys. I haven't seen a lot of pushback. I think it's mostly been positive, and I'm glad we've done it and we were doing this podcast because, like I said, going back to the networking part of it, with meeting people like yourself, James, it's nice to see and build and be a part of that network of individuals that want to help bring this awareness to other people that have that same goal. It's not just about us making money; it's about having other people. Helping other people make money. So I'm learning from it and seeing and receiving that support from other people within that network. It's been fantastic.
Yeah, I love that. And I mean, so the thing is about having black in the name. I mean, it's great to be able to see people who look like you doing what you want to be doing. So if you see a podcast just called Financial Initiative, you don't know if those are people that look like you. That could be, you know, Brittany down the road who was born in a Porsche or whatever the case is. But seeing people who look like you doing what you want to be doing, I think that is a big step in creating an environment to invite people who look like us in to not only get educated, but also to take the tactical steps that you guys are advising in order to start saving, start paying off debt, living below your means, and investing and creating wealth.
Yeah, going with that, just like you, like Gen Z, like you kind of tailor it to your what you're saying any generation can use, but you kind of tailor it to your generation, because we know your generation, you know, it's not going to be the same information that baby boomers had. You know what I'm saying? Same thing with you know, black people. Yes, most of the information that black people, as far as finances go, can be used by white people, can be used by, you know, other ethnicities, but we do know that it's not 100% the same for each ethnicity. So we kind of want to tailor it towards the black people because I mean, everybody knows our racial wealth gap. The difference is just ridiculous. So that's, I mean, really one of the main things that we're trying to, you know, work on.
Yeah, I think I love that you said that because it's taking excuses out of it. So for me and being Gen Z and talking to Gen Z, you know, the stuff I say, it's because I have done it or I am doing it, or you can too as Gen Z. People might say, well, you can't buy a house when you're, you know, 20 years old. You know, boomers might said that because houses were $10 back then. So they go to discredit that, or even having black in your name is like, well, coming from a white person, it's easy for you to say, but no. I'm black. I did it. And I'm saying you can too. I'm Gen Z. I did it, and I'm saying you can too. So it kind of takes the excuses off the table for most people when you talk directly to them. I love that, man.
I love what you just said too.
No, yeah, me too. With the excuses.
Yeah, I've come to realize that no matter what, no offense, but no matter what you guys do, and no matter what I do, and no matter what anyone else do, there's always going to be people who can make excuses for themselves and will. And you kind of have to embrace it and say, listen, I understand you have these excuses, but I don't believe you. I believe you're better than that, and give them all the support they need. I'm not going to tear you down. I'm just going to say, look, I believe in you more than you do. So make it happen. And that's been my experience up to this point, especially with this podcast. You know, people might say, oh, well, you were in the military, so you had opportunities. I'm like, hey, you have the opportunity to join the military too. So it's all about choices. Well, I don't want to do that. That's a choice, and that's fine. But you can't rag on me because of the choices I made. So, but there will always be excuses. But with that being said, what has been you guys' experience trying to teach and inspire our community to enhance their financial literacy? Like, are you guys seeing people actually taking the tactical steps needed to get it done? Or are they still kind of like, it's kind of a theory? Or what has been you guys' experience with that?
Man, I'll start with saying that I think it's been mostly positive with that experience. For example, for me, my youngest brother, just seeing his mindset start to change a little bit, just from seeing and hearing some of the podcasts, and knowing that there are people that take this seriously and are doing it to better themselves and put their kids in better situations. Seeing his mindset change and hearing and having conversations with him about finances or potential investment opportunities. So it lets me know that what we're doing is for a good reason and is hitting home. So I'm excited to see us continue this and continue to have that message spread, and also see from all the other podcasters that are, portraying and sending out the same message.
Terrence, I want you to talk a little bit more about that, because I truly don't think people understand the amount of joy and the amount of happiness that you get when you know that you've made a positive impact on someone else's life. For example, I just got a message the other day from a young lady I went to high school with. And she messaged me out of the blue, said, "Look, man, ever since I started looking at your content, I've realized that me and my husband are living outside of our means. And we're now taking the steps to do what it takes to get that under control." And the amount of like happiness and the amount of joy I get from getting a message like that is like, wow, like this all isn't for nothing. I'm not, the content isn't falling on deaf ears. So it's like, my little brother listens to the podcast, and so he'll text me and ask me a question like, "Hey, what did you mean by this?" Or I'm like, "You listen to the podcast, man?" Like, and it's just, man, the happiness, the joy, the satisfaction that at least I get, and I'm sure you guys get the same emotions, is unrivaled. I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, man. And for my brother, the first time, I remember like when he brought it up, and it was like natural, like we've had always been having these conversations. And I'm thinking in my head, like I continued on with it, but I'm thinking in my head, like, whoa, where the hell did this come from? I like it.
Yeah, I mean, so do you think that it kind of, putting this information out with you guys, do you think it's helping destroy the what's the word I'm looking for, the stigma around talking about money? Because at least for me, I always hear, "Hey man, why are you trying to count my pockets?" But it's like, no, I'm not trying to count your pockets, man. I'm just trying to, I'm trying to help you. Have you guys seen that it is destroying that stigma and saying, "Hey, like, look, we can talk about finances openly, and it doesn't mean I hate on you. It doesn't mean I'm going to boast because I make more money than you or because I save more money, but because I want to see the best out of you."
I think so. I think it's doing a good job at countering kind of the other side of the culture of social media, where it's of course people naturally want to show you the highlight reels. That's basically what social media does sometimes. It's a highlight tape. People put up the best of what they have, but and you want to flaunt and show how much money you make or you have, and we watch all the celebrities and all that. But when you hear other regular people just like yourself talking about finances and how things aren't perfect, but we can work to make them better, I think that's a good thing, and it's good to see other people doing that. So we're not always thinking that, "Oh man, you can only post it if you're balling." Like, no, you can post how we're gonna try to get to balling one day.
Right.
So I think it's good to show that it's not all just perfect.
No, I was going ahead. I know, and I don't remember exactly, but Eric, I know you got a text early on in our podcast where somebody you knew was saying that podcast really inspired him to put some money away.
Oh
I don't know if
yeah,
you remember
I
that,
was going to hit on that. Yeah, that was my cousin. He like,
Yeah.
I think it was a Total Money Makeover, I think. And I mean, he hit me up immediately, like, "Man, Eric, when I heard that, I went right to the bank and put in $1,000." And I was like, this was like a blink. I wasn't expecting that text or anything. Like, I just told my family about it and like just went on about my business. And I mean, he hit me up ASAP, was like, "Man, I just went to the bank and put 1,000 in just because of that."
Yeah.
And so I was like, "Oh, that's awesome just to hear that."
Yeah, and I got texts like that too. So after me and Terrence, we did the first Money Madness debate last year, and I was heavy on real estate. And one of my friends, he texted me, and he was like, it was out of nowhere as well. he texted me like, man, you really inspired me. Like I really need to get on my real estate. And now he owns a rental property. I'm not saying I'm the reason why, but if it feels good for him to say that, and then I see he has a rental property now. So so it's like you said, it really does feel good when you hear people kind of give you feedback that what you're doing is not for nothing. It really is working.
I think those things are beneficial of like, yeah, these people, and we're not perfect either, we're not doing everything, but like T's brother, if he's changing his mindset, Larry's friend invests in a rental property, my cousin goes and deposits some money. Like these are little wins, Then over time, I'm sure, other stuff, they'll do other stuff, but it's just beneficial to change at least that mindset. When I think that, if a person doesn't have any mindset to even care about it, at least if you get them to save or get them to maybe think of investing or think about this or think about that, that's a win.
Yeah, it's kind of like I relate it to growing a tree. You might go out and plant the seed, and all you did is plant the seed, and you might forget about it. You might forget about it for a year, 10 years, 20 years, and then you look back and say, wait a minute, like you bought 10 rental properties? Like, yeah, man, I was inspired by your stuff, Larry. You're like, what? I inspired you? Like I forgot I even put that content out. I forgot that you even saw the content. And now look at what fruit it has produced 10, 20, 30 years later. And so I think that's what I love to tell, especially people just getting into this space. I'm like, you are not going to see a big change up front, but the seeds you plant today, if one person sees your post and they're like, wow, that's truly inspiring, I'm going to make a change. For example, Eric, your friend's putting that $1,000 in. I can almost guarantee that $1,000 isn't just 1,000 anymore. Now it's probably 2, 3, 4,000, and it's become a habit just because there was a seed planted. All thanks to you guys. So, and I just want to shout out. Terrence was talking about showing the wins and the losses, the good, bad, and the ugly. Shout out to the neighborhood finance guy. I know you guys talk to him. Y'all are great, man. But he shows the good, the bad, the ugly. Watching his network drop every day, I'm like, boy, oh boy. But it's that transparency that I think so much of us appreciate in a person. Is like, show the losses, show when you're losing money. Don't just show the upside, because it's not realistic. People are going to do the same thing you did. They're not going to get the results that you've shown, and then they're going to quit, even though because you didn't show your losses. So shout out to him, man. I really appreciate his content. I know you guys are great friends with him too. So
For sure.
So let's go to the next question. I asked him this. The reason I shout out Amplify, I asked him this, and I want to get all of you guys' take on this. So, Terrence, we'll start with you. What do you think is the biggest hurdle that the Black community needs to get over in order to start building generational wealth as a mass? Because you are probably doing it for your family, and all of you guys are, but as a mass, we're still not. So what do you think is the biggest hurdle we need to get over?
Man, that's tough because there's so many hurdles up in front of everybody, but I think you can't say for lack of resources to informational resources now, because you have social media and you can find whatever you're looking for. So if you want to find some content on financial literacy, you can look up Gen Z. You can find what you need. So I think more so, and you've heard us say this before on BFI podcast, but the mindset of keeping up with the Joneses. Because people are, and it's their own hurdle. It's their own mental hurdle, because they're telling themselves that they want to keep up financially with appearances of what they see other people doing. And what you're not doing is keeping up with your own pockets, your own finances. You're not even counting your finances. You're not keeping a budget because you're too busy with spending that money to keep up with what you think needs to be done. So it's sooner, a lot of people, it's not affecting everyone, but in our community, it is hitting a lot of people, especially with social media, where you see a bunch of things. Like you said, people are showing unrealistic things where they're not showing their losses. And that's, I think, impacting people's mindset where we're not focusing on what really needs to be there.
Yeah, shout out to Charlemagne, the guy from the Breakfast Club. I love his quote, man. You got to act your wage. All right, we not.
Yeah.
Yeah, act your ways, man. So, Larry, let's go to you, man. What do you think is the biggest hurdle that the Black community needs to get over in order to start building generational wealth?
Well, I got a twofold answer to that. So you shout out man to God. He's had a person on there, Dr. Claude Anderson. He's been on his show before, and from a community, and he had a great book. He has more books, but we reviewed Powernomics. One thing I think that we need to do is work as a community together. We've been trying to do it individually for hundreds of years, and it's not working. Just keeping it real. So I think one thing is working together as a community. So shout out to Dr. Claude Anderson from Powernomics, and then also individually. I still think even though the resources are out there for financial literacy, I still think that people aren't using them. I think a lot of our community just doesn't know what we need to know. And what was it? Shout out to Earn Your Leisure, huge podcast. I feel like they are making financial literacy kind of more cooler, kind of more in the mainstream for our community. So I think podcasts like that and you and us are really helping out. But I still think financial literacy is really the main thing. I don't know the statistics off the head about debt. I don't know how much debt we have compared to other communities. I don't know how, but I do know our net worth is lower than every other community or most communities. So just financial literacy, like we do make less money than other communities, but I still think we're not, even the money we're making, we're not using it correctly. So I'm gonna go back to financial literacy for us, and going back, going back to talking to our parents and whatnot. Like after I started the podcast, I started talking to my mom, and my mom has been investing in real estate for years, and I had no idea. It was never discussed when I was growing up. So
She
she
didn't
was
want you to
investing
get
in.
she didn't want you to ask for any money.
She invested in stock market. I can't, if I said the wrong thing, she was investing in stock market for years, and you just never talked about it. And after I brought it up, as far as the podcast, and now we're starting to have conversations about it and whatnot. So I think somebody brought it up earlier, talked about it, or you talked about it, growing up in a household. I think it's huge. Like this stuff probably should be discussed at a young age within our household. So going back to financial literacy.
Eric, I'm gonna ask the same question to you in 1 second, but I just want to, Larry, I want to ask you one follow-up question. How do you suggest that we get the influence out there for financial literacy and get our community excited about financial literacy without force feeding them? Because when you force someone to do something, for example, I know the neighborhood finance guy, he's talking about putting it in schools. And my only resolution, like, I didn't pay attention in school anyways. So the odds of making me sit in that class and me actually retaining that information, I personally think is low for my work ethic, but that's because I'm just not a big school person. But how do you have any suggestion on how to get that influence in our community without force feeding it to them?
Well, going back, I think Terrence, you discussed about social media. I think trying to make it cool, not being cool, stunting, having all these fancy cars and these big houses you can't afford, whatnot, because you see that, but like you said, you don't see the bad part when, we get foreclosed on or whatever might happen if you're extending yourself too much. So, making it cool to be financially literate, making it cool to be, have a financial education and not spending too much money and investing and whatnot. And like I said, Earn Your Leisure, like I feel like they're doing a good job of bringing it to the culture. So, so different podcasts like that, and just being realistic with expectations, I guess.
Yeah, I love that. And of course, guys, I'm going to be linking the Earn Your Leisure podcast. I love their podcast. That'll be down in the show notes where you guys can find that also. But Eric, let's go to you, man. What do you think is the biggest hurdle that the Black community needs to get over in order to start building generational wealth?
Man, that's a tough question. I think T and Larry hit on it pretty good. So what I did, I kind of went to Investopedia and was like, just what do they have to say about wealth? And it said the main three things are: you need to make money first, save the money second, and invest the money third. So when I think of the Black community, the thing I think we struggle on is discipline. Discipline in all facets. I think because when you're talking about wealth, you're talking about over time. You're not talking about a 6 month, cookout or 1 year, you're talking about, when you say generations, you're talking about, at least in your generation, let's say you get to 80, well, you probably have your great grand. You're talking about a long time. And so I think for a lot of us, I think it's the discipline to stay on budget, the discipline to, when you invest, to stick with the course. A lot of us may start off and then the market tanks, we just up, I'm done. But it's not like you don't have a 10-year, 30-year plan, anything like that. Because I think for a lot of us that come from nothing, it's like you want it and you want to enjoy it now and in your lifetime. You're not thinking about your kid or your grandkid, like leaving them anything. It's like, I just want to have fun. You got to have that discipline to look down the road. And I think that's kind of like the biggest thing, and you see it in our communities a lot of times, grandparents pass, they left the house to the kids just sell it, and then 3 years later, that's the jumping spot now, and your kids sold it for little or nothing. And it's just like the discipline, because when you left it to them, like, they weren't disciplined enough to know what to do or to be ready for it. So I think that's, to me, is the main thing, is just discipline.
Yeah, Eric, but I want to dig a little bit deeper on that, right? Do you think that the lack of discipline has a secondary problem where there's a lack of hope? Because, if you ask someone like where, if you don't even expect yourself to be alive in 30 years, why should you even plan for 30 years? So, and that's a big thing in our community, is like a lot of us are blessed to see 18. So we don't even expect to see 60, or we don't expect to see 80, depending on where you live, the environment that you're brought up on. So do you think that has an effect? And I'm not, and by no means am I making an excuse. Like, I realize I could walk out the house and die tomorrow, get hit by a car, but that's not going to stop me from setting up a plan that's going to be beneficial in 30 years. So I don't want to make it as an excuse, but I just want to an explanation of, do you think that has an impact on it also?
I think partially. I think there is a mentality. I think there is a mentality of thinking like that, of, I may not be here tomorrow, I may not be here, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. So why even care or do that? But I would say I guess to counter that, I feel like everyone probably has that thought, of like you said, I could walk out here today, be killed. I got to drive back home tonight, may get into a wreck, be killed. My thing is, I think when you look past yourself, when you're talking about generational wealth, you're setting it up for others. It's not necessarily about yourself at that point. You're setting it up for others. So if I, like Larry has the rental properties, okay, I have these, let me set them up. So if something does happen to me, my kid or whoever gets it, and it's not just in bad hands, basically. So it's thinking, I think, past yourself. Even if you think, I may not make it to 25. Well, okay, let me set up a few things and I'm just going to keep rocking. If I do make it past 25, maybe I reset. Well, I don't think I'll make it to 40. let me keep going. Let me keep pushing. And the reason I say it's probably maybe the reason I say maybe a few people think like that is because I'm like, environments are a big play on it. And so, if you grow up in there's a bunch of gangs, there's people dying on the daily, like, and you literally see that, I can understand that person saying, okay, yeah, I'm not going to make it, but I would think when you're talking about, I'm talking about us as a whole, as a community, like Larry said, I think there's enough of us to push that, to say, okay, hey, you're going to live past that. You're going to do something. You're going to be better. And, maybe people end up needing mentors or something like that to say, hey, you just shouldn't think up to 18. Like, let's think past that, and if you can stretch their thought to 40, that's a win. Even though I say that's probably still early, but for a kid thinking they're going to die at 20, now they're thinking, okay, well, I could probably make it to 40 now. You're extending it. But I think wealth is an accumulation of time that requires disciplines. And I mean, you see it in all these wealthy families. Like, I mean, once their kids grow up, they get right into the business. Like, it's no question about it. They get into the business and it just continues. But that's over time. Like, it's not in my opinion, I just randomly became rich and and now I have all my family and stuff is helping me. Like, that's just not when you're talking about wealth.
Yeah, I love that, man. I think there's two ways to look at it. You can look at it pessimistically to say, you know what, I probably won't make it to 25, so I might as well live it up now. Or you can look at it optimistically and say, you know what, I might not make it to 25, so I need to work harder now. And I need to build up as much as I can up to that point. That way I can give it to others, give it to children or spouse or whoever it is. So I think that there are multiple ways that you can look at it. And I think your environment grooms you to think one way. Sometimes family, inspiration, religious reasons may have you thinking other ways. So I appreciate you speaking on that, man. Because again, these are the hard conversations that we have to have. We can't just ignore them and hope that they're going to get better. So I appreciate you speaking on that, Eric.
Oh yeah, no problem.
So last question on that. I want to go through, Larry, you talked about real estate. Let's just go through real quick. Where are you guys putting your money? And you don't got to tell me I'm putting $5 here, but like what asset classes do you guys enjoy and put most of your attention in? So let's start with you, Larry. Are you heavy into real estate? Are you kind of even between stock markets, or how is that working?
No, it's heavy real estate. So my wife and I, we both fully invest in our Roth IRAs. We both invest in our 401ks, at least get the match from our employers. We have a joint mutual account, and then also I dabble in single stocks with. So that's a little bit, but mostly it definitely goes into real estate. So just really, like I said, we don't have any consumer debt, so we're able to put a lot of money back and really just try to save for real estate. So that's really where it goes. That mostly goes to real estate.
And when you say real estate, are you talking just long-term rentals, short-term rentals, flipping?
So right now, long-term rentals. So we have a few properties. Plan to keep them 20, 30. Just wherever. I mean, in my mind right now, and things can change for sure, but my mind right now, I just want to get several rental properties and pay them off and live off them, in the next, in about 20 years or so. So that's really my goal right now. So there's different ways of, acquiring real estate. You have people who, they use hard money loans to where they don't have to use that much money of their own money. You have, you can do, you can use funding, like different funding methods and whatnot, to use other people's money, whatever. I personally want to have pretty much all the control, like honestly, so I'm not that big on partnerships or anything like that. So for that means I have to save money. So just that's really save money and be able to buy real estate. That's where most, I say, the money goes.
We on the same page, Larry, man. I mean, I'm not completely closed off to partnerships, but I will say the only partnership I want to be in for the next 30 years is with my wife. So I don't want to be attached to a property with someone else. And then real fast, just to close that out, with interest rates going up, has this deterred you from real estate? Or you still staying the course, or how are you responding to that?
Staying the course. We purchased some properties recently, so don't plan on buying any new properties in at least another year or so. So I don't know if it keeps on going up. Probably just keep on just paying off what we have and whatnot. And so we have to kind of look at how interest rates go in the future, but still 100% still plan on doing the plan. And like we talked about on the last podcast we did together, that I don't want to acquire a whole bunch of properties and then just have too much debt. So this might just be an opportunity right now to just pay, just start paying them off, and wait for the interest rates to, hopefully go down. Don't have a definite plan, but that might be what we do going forward.
Yeah, but what it sounds like is you have options, man. You have plenty of options. You can buy more, or you can pay them off, or you can go into the market more heavy, or you have options, and that's what wealth gives you.
Yeah.
So, what about you, Eric? Where are you putting your money for the most part, or what asset classes are you enjoying?
Um, at this point, I've just primarily been saving, but I'm going into crypto. So I've been putting some into crypto, and then also later on this year, I'm going to start putting money into ETFs. I don't really, I mean, I've been reading books on, but I don't really do any like single stock or anything like that. I mean, probably won't do much of that. And then also have like my pension at work, stuff like that. But yeah, really like more so on my end, just mainly like crypto. I just love reading about the blockchain, like all the different cryptos and stuff, and investing in those. But yeah, I'll say once I hit the stock market, it'll just be ETFs. I'll just do something very basic like that and just keep kind of dollar cost averaging, just doing something probably weekly.
And so, what is your strategy for crypto? Are you buying and holding it for the long term?
Oh
Are
yeah,
you
for the long term. Like everything that I buy just for the long term. I look at it and say at minimum I'm thinking 10 years. You know, and it may end up being even longer than that. But yeah, I think especially with crypto, I think short term is just it's hard to do. Crypto just it's 24/7. It goes up and down. So I was like, even if you do 6 months or a year, like that's not long enough, in my opinion. But it's to hold. I mean, I look into like the not even necessarily the amount of the crypto, it's more so like their underlying backgrounds and what they do.
yeah, their utilities?
Yeah, their utilities and like who's all on that chain, stuff like that. And not necessarily like just oh, this is a good dollar amount here, invest in it because there's like thousands of cryptos.
Gotcha. So, Terrence, what about you, man? Where are you putting the majority of your money? What asset classes are you utilizing?
And as far as majority is in stocks, and I like to go long term. Like I've mentioned before on previous PFI podcasts, that when I was first starting out, I'm like so many other people that are starting in stocks, you just don't know what the hell you're doing. So I was almost trying to play the game. I was doing, little small, penny stocks and stuff like that, and watching it almost hourly or minute by minute, and it's like, oh, sell, buy, and then I was like, hold up, this is not making any sense, this is not cool, this is so I started going for more of a long-term game plan, more focused on long-term sustainability and history of the stock and of the company. So I focus more on stocks and also some ETFs, and I also am starting to dabble into crypto also. So more of my focus is more on a diverse portfolio. So I'm trying to build into that. And Larry has been pounding the table for for real estate for a while, and he's finally starting to get me to come around. So I'm gonna start looking into some real estate after a while. I'm really starting to get interested and curious about that, to add that to my portfolio. Maybe not, like I said, personal finances are personal, so maybe not going the same route as Larry, but still incorporating that into my portfolio. But with the state of the economy nowadays, it's kind of hard to gauge how you want to perform and how you want to get active in certain things. Also, with the current stocks I have now, it's hard to kind of manage and think about how you want to do it now in this economy, because like you said, we got to show the ups and the downs. So right now, everybody that has been in stocks is going to be down right now for a little bit, but that's why my game plan is long term. That way I don't stress about that. But as I was telling my brother when we were talking about stocks and investments not too long ago, you never invest more than you can afford to lose.
Yeah, that's like the golden rule right there, man. Don't invest what you're not ready to lose. I'm not gonna say Larry, right? But real estate is working a little bit for me. You know what I mean? Just a little bit. So I'm not trying to influence you or anything, but I got a couple dollars from it. But
Has the interest rates like slowed you down any, or
that's a great question, Eric. And I was speaking with, I have a financial advisor I bring on the podcast to conversate. And the way I look at it, there are three options when it comes to real estate, right? Especially with interest rates. Either
Mhm.
they can go up and I'm locked in at 6%, and they might go up to 9%. And I look like a genius on the block. You know, I got 6, they're up to 9. They could stay the same. So I could lock in a 6 right now, and everybody else is getting 6s. And hey, you don't win or you don't lose. Or they could go down and back down to 3%. And now I'm at 6%, and I could just refinance. So, buying now, buying today, I am ignoring all of the upside of going up to 9%, and I can still enjoy the if rates go down to 3% because of refinance options. So I'm a
Ooh.
big proponent on, I'm always going to be buying as long as the numbers work, of course, as long as I can make a little bit of money after all of my vacancies and stuff like that. I'm always
Mhm.
buying. So interest rates, they have slowed me down to the point where my purchasing power has gone down, but they haven't slowed down my interest in buying. So like right now, I have showings later today that I'm going to go look at some rental properties to
Oh,
hopefully
nice.
put offers on. So yeah, that's a great question though, and I love to talk about it because a lot of people are like, "Oh, interest rates going up, I'm getting out." I'm like, "Yeah, well, it's
Yeah.
not it's not an even trade." You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm gonna
Mhm.
piggyback what you're saying because honestly, interest rates, I mean, are you gonna wait, forever? Like we don't know what's, interest rates are gonna go down if they're gonna go down. Like 6% is a lot for right now, but I've talked to people who had interest rates at 15%, 20, 30 years ago, whatever. So even though 6% sounds high right now, but historically it's not really not that high historically. And also, so for me, going back, I plan on paying off my houses. I don't plan on paying them off in 30 years. I plan on paying off, before that. So the interest rate does play a factor for sure, but I'm going to pay them off aggressively to where I'm not going to be eating that 6%, for 30 years or whatnot. So,
Yeah, and I looked at it. The average mortgage interest rate between the year 2000 and 2020 was 8%. So we are still below the average of the last 2 decades.
yeah.
So that's another indicator. Is like, okay, we can still take advantage of this right now before rates go back up to 15%. I mean, I think the highest in history was like 18%, and people were still buying houses. So it is a factor, but it should not be the determining factor, at least when I'm investing. So let's go into some of you guys' short-term goals that you hope to accomplish within the next 6 months to a year. Terrence, we'll start off with you, man. Are there any things that you really hope to accomplish within the next 6 months to a year?
Well, one of the things I was looking at, and you guys are starting to convince me, is I was thinking about, like I said, some real estate. So um, I'm really hard on on that right now, listening to you two, but it does kind of give you a little bit of anxiety thinking about the interest rates and the state of the economy and not knowing where things are headed. But that is one that I'm still pretty heavy on and looking into.
We got him, Larry. We did it, boys. We did it.
Stop the podcast.
We got him, man. We got him. All right, Eric, what about you, man? Anything you hope to accomplish within the next 6 months to a year?
Man, not. I think just putting more into crypto. Really, honestly, putting more into crypto, and then just I say like the start of 2023, doing stock market stuff. Just trying to play around with that, and I'm sure I'll be talking to T and Larry, getting ideas from them. But as far as like the next 6 months or so, just crypto.
So let me ask you this, Eric. Has the
Mhm.
current crash of crypto, is that what piqued your interest to kind of go really, really heavy into it because you believe it's going to come back? Or were you, even before this whole crash, you were going pretty gung-ho towards it?
The crash is what really got me into it. I was already like researching, like, okay, which cryptos would I like? Like, I knew I was going to do some investing in crypto, but as far as like actually like setting up an account, buying in all that, it was when the crash happened. I was like, well, hey, now it's probably as good a time as any. Like let's jump in and then just start kicking money to it every week. And I try to do like $15 every week or something like that, and just like something little just to keep it going, especially like as much as they're crashing now. but yeah, I was like, you just keep paying into it, and like, you know, it's a long-term thing. And so I'm just like, hey, I think it's here to stay. You know, do I have the right ones or whatever? You know, that I don't know, but I'm like, I think it's here to stay. And so I was like, I'll just put more into it and just kind of see what happens. And like you said, you know, I'll start diversifying, and you know, crypto will be a segment. I hope to get into real estate, like you all. I was like, that'll be another segment. And so, yeah, just diversifying in the near future. But as far as short term, just putting money into it. In the crash, I think benefits the people that are coming in now. I think the old heads that have been in it for so long, man, that hurts, man.
Yeah, but you know what they say, you know, when there's blood in the streets, there's money to be made. So
Oh yeah,
capitalizing on
for
the
sure.
opportunity. Because, you know, I tell you what, 12 months ago, man, when everything was on the up and up, everybody's like, man, I can't wait for the crash. I'm going to make so much money. Now that it's here, people are like, oh, even my, hey, look, hey, y'all ain't gonna tell her, but even my wife, man, she checks her account once in a while. She's like, ooh, I don't know about this. And I have to remind her, like, hey, look, long term, it's not gonna matter in 30 years. But even then, she's like, she was all happy when it was going up, but it's going down, boy. But yeah, a
Long
lot of
term,
people
baby,
like that.
long term.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
that's
it's great to see that, you know, you're not just barking, you know, the the crash is here and you're like, hey, I'm all in, baby, let's do it.
I was like, just keep going. I think when you think of long term like that, I mean, it's like you even brought up, you know, interest rates were like 18% at some point or whatever. Like when you're thinking long term like that, yeah, the 6% doesn't bother you. You know, I think that's how you have to think of it. But I think times like this is where I think people say like the real investors, like you really see, you know, who's about what they say. Because times like this, people just take their money out, you know, but just riding out the course, still investing. I think that's when people say the money's to be made. I think that's more so kind of where it comes from. Like you put your money in, and in 20, 30 years.
Yeah, I love it. All right, Larry, what about you, man? What is something that you hope to get done within the next 6 months to a year? You already talked about paying off these mortgages on your rental properties. Is there anything else you haven't mentioned that you plan on getting done?
Well, that's exactly what it is. So definitely closer to 12 months, but want to pay off where I live, my primary residence. And man, that was the goal this year. James, you might have the same experience, but it gets kind of addicting purchasing houses. Like when like when you find a deal, like you know when you find a deal, because it's hard to find deals. But if anybody tells there's no deals out there, they're lying. I can attest to that. But if you can find a deal and all the numbers work, it's kind of hard to say no. You know, so I will admit my goal was this year to pay off this house, but you know, some opportunities came. It kind of just fell at my lap. And I won't say that because I mean, I was hustling. I mean, I'm talking to people. I'm letting them know what I'm looking for and whatnot. But still, some good deals came. But you know, to answer your question, in the next 12 months, the goal is to pay off the house that I live in.
That's phenomenal, man. I think that is a goal of mine. I just don't know. I don't know when I'm gonna do it, man. I just like you said, man. The deal comes up and you're like, you get the email or you get the text, and you're like, man, oh man, it's hard, but yeah, I definitely feel that, man. So, okay, well, what are some? We'll go back to you, Larry. What is something you hope to accomplish within the next 5 to 10 years, and what does the finish line look like for you?
So I'm gonna probably take it back to 10 years now, or 5 to 10 years, just within that gap. Uh, really have all the houses that I currently own paid off by then. So I would say probably that would be closer to 10 years, but have those paid off. You know, um, like we talked about earlier, I want to have 10 properties paid off by the time I'm 50. So that's the 17 years for me. So you know, it's not easy, but so I would say within 10 years at least having the properties that I have paid off. And you know, maybe having one or two more you know, in the process.
Gotcha. And just question for the streets. It's not that important. It's just to satisfy my curiosity. What is your you mentioned that you're paying off your primary home first. Is that just because it's your primary home? Is it the lowest balance? Is it the lowest interest rate? Why'd you choose your primary over the rentals?
So that's a good question, and my and I have discussed that. Really, it is the lowest balance. So that's one reason. And going back to the debt snowball, it would align with that thought process. Um, Also, just kind of security, like having the house that you live paid off just makes you feel more comfortable. If you do, if say we lose a job or something like that, theoretically speaking, the other houses should have a tenant in there, still paying off the paying the rents at least at the minimum. So just security. So we have gone back and forth, but that's what we came up with though.
Yeah, hey, you ain't gonna get no complaints from me, man. I know I plan on paying off my primary residence before any other property, just because. Yeah, I don't want nobody kicking me out of my house. You can foreclose on my rental property. You're not gonna foreclose on where I live. I don't like to move. So,
Exactly.
Eric, man, what
Exactly.
about you? What are some of what do you hope to accomplish within the next 5 to 10 years, and what does the finish line look like for you?
I'll say 5 to 10 years. I definitely want to get into real estate. At this point, I don't know if it's homes or land, because I do like land, like having. I'm just kind of a country boy at heart, so having like been on
Pastures with
pasture,
Terrence, baby.
man, pastures and hunting and fishing. Like I love all that, so I do like land. So 5 to 10 years, I kind of want to get into or make my decision on what type of real estate, I guess, like land or houses and stuff. And the finish line, I would say a diverse portfolio. I think real estate is a part of it, stocks a part of it, and I want to say probably crypto. I think those three things are the things I will or intend on focusing on and letting that be kind of it for me, and hopefully having enough or making enough money from those to where I can either retire early or I can retire and go get a job that I would probably more so like, and then just have that supplementing, my income.
Gotcha. That's a good goal, man. So, Terrence, what about you? What do you hope to accomplish within the next 5 to 10 years, and what does the finish line look like for you?
Yeah, balancing out that portfolio and diversifying. So for me, the next step would be, like we mentioned, some real estate. I know that makes you and Larry all warm and fuzzy on the inside. But I do want to do that. And within, like I said, 10 years, goals and plans do shift as you get going. But at this point, I'm hoping to have a couple of real estate properties by then.
I love it, man. You're making me giving me butterflies, man. I love me some real estate. I believe in it so much. The way, Eric believes in crypto, you believe in the market and stuff like that. I really believe in real estate. And it's even though it's the right path for me, it's not the right path for everyone. So I suggest everybody dabbling a little bit, but personal finance is personal, right? So, all right, guys, let's get into the final questions of the podcast. And I ask every single guest that comes on the podcast these same questions. Are you guys ready?
Let's do it.
All right, we're just going to go down the line. Larry, we're going to start with you. Question number one. Everyone has their own definition of what it means to have financial peace. What is your definition?
Really, financial peace, just I would say it means the freedom for me to do what I want to do when I want to do it. Not have to worry about working eventually. That's one thing I want to stop having to do, but just having time. Me and my wife, we enjoy traveling. We enjoy just hanging out, just doing what we want to do. And I want to have the financial means, and not worrying about, debt and other factors to what we can just do what we want to do when we want to do it. So for me, that's what financial peace is.
Yeah, I love it, man. Eric, what about you? Everyone has their own definition of what it means to have financial peace. What is your definition?
Yeah, I think Larry just stole it. I literally put in my notes, I said, doing the work that you want to do when you want to do it. And I think, like he said, it kind of comes down to just time. I always feel like I'm going to work or do some type of work to the day I die. Like, I just don't want to sit at home and just be in a box all day. So like, I'll be doing something, but it's more so giving you the freedom to do what you want to do when you want to do it. Oh, I want to take this week off, fine. I want to take this month off, fine. But yeah, I think that's what it is to me, just time and doing what you want to do.
Yeah, you ain't gonna get no complaints from me. I think that's all of our goals. Terrence, what about you, man? Everyone has their own definition of what it means to have financial peace. What is your definition?
And when it comes down to it, it's basically the same as Larry and Eric. It's not stressing about how you're going to pay for what you need to pay for. Pay for what you want to, and pay for future goals and what you need to pay for, like the essentials. Transportation can be as basic as the transportation or housing and food. So not having to stress about paying for those items. And then if you want to plan a couple of vacations for the year and not stressing about how you're going to be able to afford that. So for me, that's financial peace, is when you don't have to stress about how you're going to make that happen. Because I think we all have seen someone, or maybe of someone where that's not always the case, where you have to, there is some stress to next week even, so I think that's financial peace.
Yeah, I love it, man. So, all right, Terrence, if there are listeners out there that want to start building wealth and they have no clue where to get started, what would you tell them?
Ooh, best place to get started, it would be to, well, if you're already listening, you started in the right spot, because that's where I would tell you is to get online, get on social media, look up Gen Z, look up BFI, look up the Neighborhood Finance Guy, or and listen to others that are trying to get started or already established in those fields, and get that information, and then you will know how to get started.
I love it. Eric, what about you, man? What would you tell someone if they have no clue where to get started? What would you tell them?
Oh man, you know what? I would say go to a book. I would actually say either Rich Dad Poor Dad or Total Money Makeover, Richest Man in Babylon. But I would say probably focus on something that you can do. Like, hey, I think I can save money well. I would go find a book that talks about saving money, like head in that direction. Everybody knows or has some idea of something good that you can do, or somewhere where you're lacking. So I would then, go pursue that, and, start with a Google search, start that way. But I would say probably read a book, man. I would say that. I mean, even though I don't like, that's the third option for me. I would say if I'm starting, that's where I would start at, was a book.
Yeah, hey, you ain't gonna get no complaints from me. All right, Larry, what about you? If there's someone out there who has no clue where to start building wealth and they want to get started, what would you tell them?
I'm gonna piggyback off of E. I think starting off a book, and I think Total Money Makeover for me is like the perfect book to start with. Like, even if you don't take exactly what he says, I mean, the principles have zero or low to no debt. Invest for retirement. If you have children, invest for their college. Pay off your house. I mean, kind of. Now there are people who saying that you shouldn't buy houses now, like you should rent and whatnot, and I don't agree with what they're saying there. But I think for the most part, what Dave Ramsey says in Total Money Makeover is really, it's kind of simple, which I think it should be simple, especially when you're starting off. It's simple, and it's, to me, it's I think it's fundamental, I guess. So I'm kind of picking off E, what he said.
As Dave Ramsey would say, it's common sense for your dollars and cents. I love that saying. All right, Larry, third question. If there's one thing you could advise everyone to avoid doing when building wealth, what would it be?
For me, it's easy, getting in too much debt. I think if you keep your debt low and you keep your expenses low, you're at least not putting yourself in a bad situation. You might not really be building wealth, but you're at least you're not taking away from your wealth. So at the minimum, not getting too much debt, and kind of going back to the last question, did you ask? I know I said Dave Ramsey, but also from there, maybe learn a skill, maybe learn a way to improve your income, start learning how to invest and whatnot. But for this last question you asked me, I would say not getting too much debt, not too many expenses.
Yeah, I love that, man. It's kind of like stop the bleeding. Debt is like your income is bleeding because it's coming in and it's going out. Your body's creating blood and it's going out. You're creating income and it's going out. So stop the bleeding. get your debt under control and get it started to get paid off. I love that, man. All right, Eric, what about you? If there's one thing you could advise everyone to avoid doing to build wealth, what would it be?
Since Larry already took that, I would say that's my number one. But I would say also kind of beware of social media. Like as far as like you living through those people, like be aware that it's all an image. You're looking at highlights. So I would say kind of like avoid that. I guess like T said earlier, keeping up with the Joneses, I think is what a lot of people look at on that, and I need to have this and do that. I would say probably avoid that, especially when you're starting out. I would say probably avoid like social media, that form of social media, not the information part, but like the whole highlight reel part.
Yeah, I
T.
had
Eric,
a.
he said after Joneses. That's how T would say after Joneses.
Yeah, Joe. I had Joe on an episode from Stack and Benjamin's podcast, and he said a great tip was don't compare your beginning to my middle. And I think that's an awesome thing that translates, because like you might see Larry who's got multiple rental properties and you're just trying to, get current on your credit card debt. Like don't compare Larry's middle of his journey to your beginning, because all it's going to do is discourage you. So I love that saying. And it kind of goes with what you were saying, Eric, is like keeping up with the Joneses. They might have that, but you don't know what it took for them to get that, or you don't know what they're dealing with in order to have that, whether it's a big car loan or whatever. So Terrence, you got some shoes to fill, man. They gave you two bangers. So tell me, Terrence, what is something you would advise everyone to avoid doing to build wealth?
All right. First off, I'm gonna shout out whoever that was. I don't know who that was that you said don't compare your beginning to my middle, but I love that. That's fire right there. But as far as answering your question, I'm going to connect it to what Larry and Eric both said already, but I'm going to say it a little bit differently. So maybe register with someone differently, but don't live beyond your means, because that is how you're going to end up with too much debt, like what Larry said. And also one of the ways of doing that is trying to keep up with Jones. And that's when you end up living beyond your means. So probably need to budget. That's a good way to avoid that. You know how much is coming in and you can manage how much is going out. So don't overdo it.
Okay, so if you had to give like a percentage, let's just a percentage of how much of your income you should be spending to live and how much you should be trying to save, what would you say? Like, what would you consider living beyond your means? I know it's not dollar for dollar because that's unsustainable. But what would that be?
Well, we haven't dropped this podcast yet. We still need to record it, but we're going to do The Richest Man in Babylon. And so while catching up on that book, and like you, I'm not a huge reader at this point in my life, so I do the audio book. But one of the principles in that, and as he says, you need to, a portion of what you make is yours to keep. And he says that needs to be no less than 10%.
10%. I look, nice round number. I can dig it. All right, Terrence, if there's someone out there that doesn't believe they can reach financial peace due to their age, race, religion, sexual orientation, etc., what would you say to change their mind?
I would say everyone can reach it, man. Look at so many people that started from nothing, started from the bottom, and they've all made a way. You can probably look at someone, a former classmate, look at one of your family members. So instead of being too caught up and focused on the excuses or what people taking a cue from people that haven't done it, look to those that have as your inspiration. Because that's one of my pet peeves. If people are quick to look at why they can't do it, look to people that haven't done it, look to people that are doing it wrong and saying that this won't work. Like for every one of those people you point out, you can point out to someone that has done it correctly, or point out to a reason why it will work. So it's just a mindset. So just look around and you'll find those examples for you.
I love it, man. Eric, same question to you. If there's someone that's out there that doesn't believe they can reach financial peace due to all those different things, what would you say to change their mind?
I would say focus on what you want, learn about it and put it into action. There's all different types of plans out there. You don't just have to be young, starting off young. I know we talk about all these long-term plans, but I would guarantee you there's a person right now talking about the 50 and older crowd. There's a person like BFI's Black Financial Initiative. You have the Gen Z. Like there are so many different brackets now that people are talking about. You can find an avenue for you. It's out there. It just takes a little bit of research. You can find that avenue, focus on it, and you can do it.
I love it, man. Larry, last question goes to you, man. If there's someone out there that doesn't believe they can reach financial peace due to their age, race, religion, sexual orientation, etc., what would you say to change their mind?
I would say don't pay attention to anybody else other than with your goals. Block out everything. Just start simple. If you don't make that much income for whatever reason or whatever, if you feel like might be blocking where you're trying to go, just start simple. See the little wins. The little wins will keep on adding up and it'll keep you encouraged. And 5 years from now, 10 years from now, you'll look back and say, I was able to accomplish, or I'm still accomplishing what I didn't think I could accomplish. Just start off small. Start whatever your goal is, wherever that goal is. Start off small, and just keep on working your goal and don't pay attention to nobody else.
Yeah, I absolutely love it, man. You're not gonna get no argument for that one either, man. Y'all are awesome, man. I really appreciate y'all coming on, man, taking the time out of your day to come on and have this conversation, because I really think that y'all are doing a phenomenal thing. And I think a lot of people might say, oh, the personal finance space is so crowded, but I don't think we have enough, man, because we don't have enough stories to give examples of every single person who can make it in every single path that you have available to you. So I commend you guys for what you're doing. So tell me, guys, where can people find out more about you all?
All right. So you got the Instagram. It's just type in Black Financial Initiative, or it's Black Financial _initiative. The Twitter is BFI_podcast. For the Facebook, you just type in the Black Financial Initiative podcast. Also for the podcast, just type in the Black Financial Initiative podcast. That's where you can find us at.
Yeah, and of course, guys, y'all aren't going to have to go far. I'm going to have links to all of that down in the show notes below, where you guys can give these guys a listen, man. They're putting out such great content. And I'm 100% sure that you can go in and find a bunch of gems that can impact your life, especially if you look like us. You're going to find some gems there. So I really appreciate y'all coming on today, man. This has been absolutely awesome. And I'm so glad I could get all of you guys' perspective on this whole wealth building thing. Because even though you guys are all on the same platform, y'all all have different ways of doing it, between real estate, crypto. Terrence kind of just doing, everything. So I love it, man. I really love it. I really appreciate you guys coming on, man.
Oh, man, we enjoyed having
us. Yeah, man. Appreciate you.
Absolutely,
and man.
Great
conversation.
We love your content, man. Keep doing what you do.
No, you guys keep doing what you do, man. Hopefully I can have you guys on in the future and we can take this one step further. But I hope you guys have a blessed rest of your day.
All right, you too. Thank you again.
Later. And guys, that was my interview with the guys from the BFI podcast, the Black Financial Initiative podcast. Like I said, we talked about so much different stuff and we covered a lot, especially when it comes to financial literacy in the Black community and not having it or having it. We talked about a whole bunch of books, guys. We talked about Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Richest Man in Babylon, Total Money Makeover. We talked about the Earn Your Leisure podcast. We talked about so many different resources that are outside of this podcast that you guys can reach out to and listen to or read. I mean, I would highly suggest all of those are great books. And of course, I'm going to have all of that down in the show notes. Like I said, if you guys really enjoyed listening to these brothers speak and give their wisdom and give their experience, make sure you guys go listen to the BFI podcast. I'm telling you, they drop some real hard gems. I've learned so much from these guys. I look up to these guys because they are doing what I want to be doing. So I really appreciate all of them coming on. I appreciate Terrence, appreciate Eric, appreciate Larry, appreciate you guys for coming on. Shout out to the neighborhood finance guy. We mentioned him. I'll link his stuff in the show notes also. But yeah, man, I mean, This was such an awesome conversation. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. Like I said, like I always say, if you guys need anything from me, reach out to me. All of our social medias are down in the show notes below. I answer all the questions personally. And also, if you guys do want one-on-one coaching, I offer free consultations, and you can book that down on my website in the show notes. But without further ado, guys, I'm your host, James Bowman. And always remember, you're only as secure as your ability to perform. So spend your life accumulating assets that can perform for you. Later, guys.